Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the official Nerd Talk channel. My name is Tyler. I'm joined by my co host AJ Reacts 2, and we are starting a new series on the Nerd Talk channel called Originals versus Remakes. This is going to be a series where we take original movies made possibly in back in the day, and we're going to look at their remake or remakes, which is the case for many of these movies, and discuss what if they're good, if they're bad, what's similar about them, what's different, and what is the definitive version of that movie. Also, have Merry Christmas, everybody. This is taking. We are recording this a week before Christmas, but this we're dropping this on Christmas, so I hope everyone's having a great, happy holidays. I hope nobody got cold in their stocking, and keep the peace in your families because I know the holidays are terrible for families. But
Merry
yeah,
Christmas.
this is an idea that I had on my YouTube channel light years ago, and I thought it would be cool to bring it back and actually put some effort into it. So we're not going to waste too much time. We're going to talk about each individual Black Christmas remake since there are three of them. And then we're going to talk about the similarities across all three, and then talk about the differences, and then we'll talk about which version we think is the best one. Although the decision is not hard. So, without further ado, let's get into the original classic Black Christmas. So, Black Christmas came out in 1974, was directed by Bob Clark. This is a Canadian horror film, stars Olivia Hussey and John Saxon. Those are the most notable names in this movie, among many. And it tells the story of a sorority during the holidays. They're getting attacked and stalked, and they're getting these creepy phone calls by someone who is assumed to be the name Billy. They never really confirmed that. That's just what's happening. So the first time I saw Black Christmas, I actually watched it for like when I said I was going to do that review series, and honestly, like, it changed my view of horror. I was like, wow, horror can, like, I had seen, like, Halloween and Texas Chainsaw by that point, but this was one of the scariest movies I'd ever seen because it just felt so real and grounded. So to see a movie like that, so old, do it so well, it was impressive. And for the time, the atmosphere that was created, and it's so low key too. Like, the kills are not really in your face, and because it's not really about the kills, it's about the atmosphere and the tension, especially with the incredible phone calls. I still don't know how they did that, but that is without a doubt probably the scariest element of that film. What are your thoughts on the original Black Christmas?
I have very similar views as you with Black Christmas. I actually saw the 2019 version before I even knew this version existed. I thought the 2019 version was the only Black Christmas. So when I found out this was the original was out there, I was like, okay, let me check that out. And I watched it, and it has, like you were saying, it has such a atmosphere about it, like such a over looming like feeling of dread and like tension, and it does that perfectly. And like you said, I had seen Halloween and things like that before I watched this, so like it was it felt a lot less, I guess, like you said, in your face about the kills and things like that. So, um, just like that over looming feeling of tension and dread, like makes this movie what it is, and I love that about it. The cinematography and the editing is something that I absolutely love about this film. It is um quite possibly one of the best to do it in the horror genre, period. So those are my thoughts on the film. I really enjoy this film, and it's pretty much a yearly watch for me now.
Yeah, so something else that I think this movie and the next one we're going to talk about does, it really uses that winter or Christmas atmosphere very well. There's a lot of
Mhm.
snowstorms in this movie, towards the end of the film when our main character is being stalked and someone approaches the door. It's very, what am I trying to like? It's misty, I guess, from the ice.
Mhm.
So they have to scratch the door, to get the ice off. And I really love that. And also, without spoilers, the ending, the final like 30 seconds of this movie is just it's incredible. And you might, oh, how is 30 seconds incredible? It's because of what it entails for the ending. I love a dark ending, and this is very much a dark ending.
Mhm.
So I personally love it. I think Black Christmas is one of the greatest horror movies ever made. I think this movie walked so Halloween could run, and I don't think people want to admit that, but that's honestly how I feel about it. It's such a low key and lowbrow horror movie, but it works, and that's why I think it's one of the most effective horror movies ever made. And I still don't think it gets enough love, which is a shame. But now that we've given our thoughts on that, let's talk about a movie that is the absolute total opposite of what we just said in the Black Christmas 2006 remake titled Black Xmas. So, Black Xmas was directed by um, Glenn Morgan, who really doesn't direct things anymore because he was quoted in saying if people did not like this movie, he would not direct anymore. Um, but granted, that's because of the troubled experience that this had. But that's what happens when your movie's produced by Harvey Weinstein. Um, so this movie takes kind of a different, well, not kind of a different approach. It still has the same mold, but it adds a lot to it. So this movie, it focuses on it's still focused on a sorority, but it gives us the backstory to Billy and where he came from and everything that he went through as a child, and it kind of leads up to the original Black Christmas. Everything that's adapted from the original Black Christmas is pretty much the same. It's just different characters and a different ending, but the mold is the same. So I saw this movie for the first time this year, and I kind of avoided it because I heard it was really bad. But I started to hear people say, "Oh, well, it's not that bad," and especially with how bad the 2019 one is, I was like, "Well, it can't be worse. Nothing can be worse," So, and I was actually very curious in this because you have a great cast. You have Katie Cassidy, Mary Elizabeth Winstead. Um, the girl from Mean Girls. I don't know her name. Sorry. Um, but you have a solid cast here,
Gretchen Wieners.
and I would say that I I like this movie. I do. I think it's very bold and very different, which I can respect about a remake. The worst thing about a horror remake or any remake in general is just doing beat for beat, shot for shot, everything. This movie is definitely not that at all, which I appreciate. Even if this movie was terrible, I'd be like, I do respect the fact that this movie is very different, and I appreciate that. The movie is it's the opposite of the original, where the original, it's not focused on the gore and the kills. This movie is very much focused on the gore and the kills, and I think it works. If someone said, "Oh, well, I don't really like this version of Black Christmas," talking about the original, and then you're like, "Well, maybe you'll like this one," I think they might actually like this one. You know, it it's a movie that you have to roll with, and if you don't like some of the things they do, like Billy baking his family and eating their human flesh with milk, which is a scene that happens in this movie, you're not gonna be fine with it. You're gonna be like, what am I watching? What were your thoughts on the '06 remake?
So I literally watched the '06 remake today, before this stream, and yeah, it's wild, man. I was not expecting it to be as gruesome and as bloody and gory as it was, given that the original wasn't quite like that. Um, so seeing that was a bit jarring, and I kind of liked that aspect of it. Um, there's not as much mystery going on, just because yes, we get Billy's backstory. We kind of know who is doing these things. After a while, they actually show, the face of, you know so it's like not as much mystery there, but it does have that element of um those 2000s slasher films that, um yes, they can get gory, they kind of can get a little predictable with, the how the third act is going to be and how the characters are going to react and act. It's kind of on par with those, but it does it well, and the kills are crazy. So, that's a different take, definitely a different take on Black Christmas than the original.
Yeah, I also really like the way the movie is directed. There's some really interesting shots,
Hmm.
both just regular shots and shots of kills. Like
Hmm.
the kills are, people use the term in your face very loosely. This movie very much has in your face kills. Like when someone's about to get stabbed, the camera's here and the person's face is here. Like they're about to die.
Yeah.
Um,
And you
but
seen
there's
some,
also
you seen some brains. You see some.
yeah, there's also some really cool sequences. Like there's a sequence where I think it was Katie Cassidy's character. She's in the middle of like this floor or something,
Hmm.
and
In the
his
wall.
sister,
She's.
yeah,
Hmm.
his Billy's sister's on the bottom and Billy's at the top, and they're coming closer to like closing in on her. I was like, that's actually really cool and kind of scary.
Yeah.
You know, the movie is very interesting. It, like I said, it is very different, and if you cherish the original so close to your heart, you might not like it. But I think it's different enough to stand on its own, and I actually really like it. I was watching it when it ended. I was like, I could see myself watching this every year and
Hmm.
not really getting annoyed by it. So moving away from that, we are moving on to the third Black Christmas remake, Black Christmas 2019. So, Black Christmas 2019 was directed by Sophia Takal, and this once again follows a sorority, but this one kind of veers way different. So, this one is about a sexual assault victim. She's attending college and whatever, and she gets back at this fraternity, and she starts getting mysterious messages, and her friends are going missing, and she's trying to figure out what's happening, and then all of a sudden she's getting attacked by these men in cloaks, and they basically have to try to survive, and that's the best way I can summarize it. So this movie's really bad. I'm not even gonna be around the bush. I'm gonna try not to go too hard on this. This movie's really bad. This movie is Black Christmas by name only. You still have the element of it's a sorority and they're getting attacked. I That's interesting. Other than that, it's just Black Christmas by name. There's no Billy character. There's no phone calls. I think there might be one phone call. I don't remember.
It's more texts in this
Yeah,
one.
2019.
Yep.
Um, I think the bad kill is in here, which is fine. But other than that, it's Black Christmas by name. None of the characters are interesting, and none of the characters are really interesting in all three of these. I'm gonna be honest, but really, none of the characters are interesting here. I think the acting is really all terrible here. The line delivery is not good here. The writing is abysmal, and the movie is honestly really boring to me. I was watching it and I was 45 minutes in and I was like, dude, nothing has happened. And it doesn't help that this movie's rated PG-13, and, you know, before you guys say, "Oh, well PG-13 horror can work." You're right, PG-13 horror can work. This does not work. The kills are uninteresting. There's maybe one that she kills a dude with keys and you see some blood, and I was like, "Oh, that's kind of cool." Um and the movie is just hindered by this terrible, like, feminism message, and again, I've seen movies with feminism messages that work. This just did not work. It just beats you over the head like Negan Walking Dead style, just beats you over the head with a terrible message, and just it basically pushes aside the entire demographic of men, you know which is a shame because men fill up the horror community just as much as females do. So I don't really understand where that came from, you know, and I don't think, the horror genre was the right genre to do this because the horror genre is kind of all about females. Where do you think Final Girl came from? You know? So I don't really understand why they made that choice. I don't think it works at all. I think it comes off as cringe and honestly just uncomfortable to watch this
Mhm,
movie.
mhm.
I've only seen it the once before watching it again yesterday, and twice was enough. Once was enough, but twice is enough. This is a truly terrible horror movie and might be one of the worst, if not the worst horror remakes ever. What are your thoughts on the 2019 Black Christmas?
So like I said, I saw this one first before I even knew that there were any other Black Christmas films out there. And when I first watched it, I didn't love it, but I didn't hate it. And I think it was mainly because I hadn't seen the other ones and especially the original. I didn't know how good this franchise could be. And I was watching it and I rewatched it today just before the stream. And I agree with a lot of what you said. It's just really uninteresting overall. The message could have been done so much better, even and like you said, and not in this genre though. Like this genre doesn't feel right for this message. And like pretty much leading up to the third act, that's pretty much all it was, just kind of like beating you over the head with, you know, like this agenda, which it, like I was talking off screen about different films and they do it so much better in some different films. I was thinking of Promising Young Woman, and it has a message. It has that message, but it blends so much better with the story being told, and it feels like the writers were in the room, like, okay, we got this name Black Christmas, and we're just gonna like have a lecture for an hour and a half. And what about the horde? No, no, not important. What about the dialogue? No, no, not important. Let's get this message out there. Let's get these. I'm just like, where's the movie? Like, there's really feels like no story. It just feels like the story was an afterthought in what they're trying to convey,
Yeah,
and it
the
it, it that sucks.
the movie is also like going back to what you said about horror. The movie really like there's parts where it feels like horror. There's actually one sequence in this movie that I genuinely like and I think it's good. It's the scene where they're in the house and the two, I'm calling them the two girls. I don't know these, well, no, the main girl is Riley. She's behind this like counter and she's with her friend and they're getting stalked. I kind of like that scene, and the dude is on like the top or
Hmm.
something. Like I
Hmm.
do like kind of like that scene,
So H2O.
but it's immediately just cut by, again, terrible dialogue, characters I don't care about, a terrible villain played by Carrie Ells, who's just god awful in this movie. And also back to the horror. The movie kind of forgets the horror movie in the third act. The third act, they go from a horror movie, like the setup for the third act is a horror setup. It's like,
Hmm.
okay, and then it goes from a horror movie to Avengers Endgame with
It
females.
did. It did.
I was like, what? And it's not
When they
even like
bust down the
a,
door, it's
literally,
like,
it's
get
like
him.
on a dime, it becomes an action movie. It's like, where did this come from? I don't know. I hated this movie the first time, and I hated this movie even more now. This is easily one of the worst
My
movies I've ever
score
seen.
has definitely gone down. It wasn't high. I think I had it like at a 2.5, but now it's definitely a 1.5.
So now that we covered all three, let's talk about the similarities between all three. So I think the similarities between all three is the fact that they all take place in Christmas, duh, obviously.
Hmm.
They take place during the winter season. And the main big similarity between all three is that all three have they focus on the sorority, and I
Mhm,
think that works. That's fine.
mhm,
Um, the similarities between the original and the '06 one is that both feature the Billy character. Obviously, they do things differently, but they have the same character in both of those movies, and that's really all the similarities between all three that
the
I can.
phone calls in the first two,
Yeah,
the phone
yeah,
calls, and I think the first one does it so much better, mainly because it's incoherent. Like we don't know what is being said. Like it, like some of the stuff like makes sense, but oh, like after a certain amount of time, it's just like nonsense being said and screamed into the phone, which is like kind of terrifying, more terrifying than understanding what they're saying. So,
yeah.
and that's pretty much what they do in the second one too.
That's pretty much all the similarities I could think of. So now let's
Hmm.
get into the differences between the three. So uh the main difference from the '06 one to the original is that they give Billy a very detailed backstory. We see him from childhood. We
Hmm.
see what he went through as a child. His parents were terrible, and well, mainly his mom. His dad was kind of okay.
Hmm.
And then we see that he has a sister slash daughter, which that's one of the things that's a no no for me in that movie. I saw that and I was like, no, that's no bueno. But that is a difference in it. And also, the ending of the '06 remake is different. It doesn't take place in the sorority house. It takes place in a hospital,
Hospital.
which I think is a terrible decision. But that might be because that movie has alternate endings. So
Hmm.
that
I
might
didn't
be,
know that.
yeah, that movie had a very troubled production. Um, but that's really mostly the differences between the original. Like I said, the remake mostly keeps that mold of the original Black Christmas, which again I really appreciate. Also the main difference is that the kills are insanely more gruesome in this.
Yeah.
Um, there's a lot of stabs and eyeball gouges, eyeball eating. Uh,
The juice is squirting out onto the screen.
um,
There's this kill in the '06 where they throw a what is it called? Ice skate at
yeah,
some at the back of somebody's head,
bro,
and you
it
see
was
the
great.
brains come. Oh
Yes,
man, the brain meat. Oh
great.
my
So good. Um yeah, those are the main differences between the '06 and the original. Now, the main differences between the original and the 2019 one, it basically everything. The plot is entirely different.
it's
There's
different.
no Billy character.
Hmm.
Um the kills are very different in the sense that they all suck. Um
It's
but
PG-13 cutaway kills and
different. I mean, it's just mainly the story, the plot is all different. The villain, the
the
main threat is
calls.
different. Of which there's really none.
Mm-mm,
And the entire third act is different, obviously.
mm-mm.
And
There's no like it's not very much tension.
no,
It's not very much tension in the there are like segments of tension throughout the film, but it's not like the whole film feels like has that feeling of dread like that first one did. And
yeah,
that's kind of like for the '06 as well. '06 is like more in your face slasher, and it doesn't like have that like I don't know, like not feeling of terror, but like it doesn't have that creepiness element to it. It's more like, okay, here's a kill, here's a kill. Um, and I just like I love that aspect of that original one. That's why it kind of holds these other two back.
yeah. Um, so now that we talked about the similarities and the differences, we are going to talk about the definitive version, and I think the answer for both of us is the same. It is going to be the original 1974 classic. This is one of the greatest horror movies ever made. I think it nails the tension the best. It nails the atmosphere the best. The
Mhm.
kills, but I would say the '06 has the kills over the original, but
Does.
that's the kind of movie that movie is. This movie really does not need the kills. The couple that are in here are great, especially the opening one, but I think this movie does a great job at tension, atmosphere, using its environments very well, and that's why it remains one of the greatest horror movies. And this is no question the definitive version of Black Christmas that we have. Um, so thank you guys for tuning into this video. This is gonna be the first one in a long list. We already mapped out the entire year for next year, which I'm very excited to do some of those. Let us know if you want to see any specific ones. We'll let you know if we're doing them. And please leave a like on this video and subscribe to the Nerd Talk channel if you have not already. Turn on the bell for all notifications for movie reviews, videos like this, and Nerd Talk live streams. And also follow our Instagram. The link is down below. Once again, everyone, have a Merry Christmas, and we will
Merry
see you
Christmas.
on the next one.